Aloha, Rich Halverson here, and we are continuing chapter 8, and in this video I'm going to do project 8.3. So if we take a look at 8.3, this is what it looks like. In this, we're supposed to write a function that returns the location of the largest element in a two-dimensional list, and the function should look like this. And the return value is a one-dimensional list that contains two elements. These two elements indicate the row and the column indexes of the largest element in the two-dimensional list. And so we have to write a program that prompts the user to enter the two-dimensional list and displays the location of the largest element in the list. Note that the matrix is entered by rows and numbers in each row separated by space. So this is what it should look like. First, we ask how many rows in the list, and then for that number, we request the rows one by one, and at the end, we display out the largest element, the location of the largest element. In this example, we see that this is a 3-row by 4-column matrix. This is 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 0, 2, 1, 2, 2, and 2, 3. And if we look at all these numbers, we see that this 45 is the biggest. And so that would be row, not 0, but row 1, column 0, column 1, column 2. So row 1, column 2. And that's what is displayed out here. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to copy this and this. Copy. I'm going to copy that into a blank text file here. Paste. Oops. And that's the comment, and this thing is going to be up there at the top. And let's see, let me word wrap this. I don't think I need all this. Okay. So let's start out by asking for the rows. All right, well, I'm just going to show you how to do it, and then I'll leave it up to you to make sure that you declare a function and so on that does this. So let's read some rows. Rows equals integer input, and it's going to ask for enter the number of rows in the list. And it's going to return an integer. That's going to be an integer. And then we're just going to loop for r in range of the integer. Do this. Let's enter a row. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read in these rows. And as I read in the rows, I'm going to keep track of the row that I've read in. And I'm going to keep track of the biggest number that I read in. And so for each row that I read in, I'm going to look at each number, and the 0th number, the 1st number, the 2nd number, the 3rd number, and I'm going to keep track of the largest one. And so all through the whole thing, I'm going to keep track of the largest one, and I'm going to keep track of what index we're on. So the first row we read in is going to be row 0. So let's read in that row. I'm going to call it row equals input, and it's going to be enter a row. Okay, so that's going to enter a row. And then I got to split that. It's a string. It's a single string with some spaces and numbers between spaces. So I got to split that up. I'm going to split it up to calls for columns, and it's going to be a list, a single list. And each element in the list is going to be one column of the row, so that's a fine variable name for it. And calls is going to be a row split. So now calls is a list. So when we read in this, calls of 0 is going to be this, calls 1 is going to be this, calls 2 is going to be this, and calls 3 is going to be this. And so calls has got a length. It's 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So the length is 4 elements. So I'm going to do 4 for each column in the range of the length of the calls. This calls list. I'm going to name this elements, and I'm going to name this elements. And I'm going to say the length of the elements. So we have an elements, an empty elements list. This elements is going to be the row split up. So there's going to be 4 elements in this list. When we read this row, 4 elements when we read this row, and so on. And this is going to loop for all the columns for all the elements in this list of elements. All right, now if it's the first row in the first column, we don't have a high. We're going to keep track of the highest value for each element we read in, and we need to keep track of what the row in the column is for each of those elements that we read in. So if the row is equal to 0 and the column, the C, forgot this. We got a for loop here, and we have a for loop here. So if the row and the column are both equal to 0, then it's the very first one. So let's set the high value and the high row and the high column equal to this. So the high value is equal to whatever we just read in. It's going to be a floating point number of the elements of this. So this elements is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, and so floating point number. So that's going to be our high value. We're just initializing this. And the high row is equal to 0, and the high column is equal to 0. Not equal to 0. Yeah, it is equal to 0. That's because this and that's equal to 0. We can actually just say they're both equal to R and C, because R is equal to 0, C is equal to 0. Otherwise, if we're not on the first one, then we got to test to see. Then we're actually reading along, and we got to make sure that the new one that we read in, if the new one that we read in is a new high, then we have to save that value and the row and the column. If it's not a new high, then we can ignore it. So we have an elif. If the floating value of elements of C is greater than what we have as our high C, high value, if that's true, then we have a new high. So we're actually just doing this again. A little bit of duplication there, but who cares? And then, so that's it. So I think that's it. This is going to loop through all the columns in that row that we read in. And wonder if I can do this. I think I can maybe do this. Or this. So I'm going to put parentheses around here just in case I can do the operator precedence thing. Okay, so if R is equal to 0 and C is equal to 0, then we want to do this. Or if the floating point, if the float of, if the elements, if the new element that we just looked at is greater than the high value, then we want to do this also. All right, so I guess I don't need this. And so when we're all done, we should have the high row, the location, which row it was, which column it was that we ended up with the highest value in the whole array. So we should just be able to print this. Print. I'm going to print out high row, high column, and the value. Now, you're going to have to print it out this way. But I'm going to print it out this way because I want to see what's up. I think this might all work. Let me save this. And this is my test.py on the desktop. So let me do a CMD and get to the desktop. And here it is, right here. And if I run it, invalid syntax. I wonder if this is like a reserved word or something. Invalid syntax. C in range of the length of the elements. I'm gonna make this just in case this is a funny reserved word. I'm gonna do this. Just in case elements is a funny reserved word. Let's see what this does for me. I don't know what's the matter with this. 23. C in range of the length of this. I need a colon there. You know what I'm going to do? You know, when you're debugging and you try something and it doesn't fix it, then you try something else and it fixes it. You don't know whether or not the first thing that you tried was actually a second bug. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to what I had there and put a colon here because I don't know if this elements is a problem. I notice it's a different color. So let's just see if this works. Enter the number of rows in a list. I'm going to say 3 and enter in a row. Let me just copy. Let me see this here. Let me copy this row, copy, paste, enter. Let's do this row, copy, paste, enter. And let's do this row, copy, paste, enter. And we see this first one, we print out the row and the column, and that's a 1 and a 2. And we also print out the high value here, which is 45. We don't need to, what we're supposed to print out is this. The location of the largest element is this. And so you have to print it out. You have to make this last thing look like this. Okay? Hold on a second here. here. So here's my cat. I hope, so I have just completed project 8.3. This should be enough for you to get through. And anyway, okay. Anyway, all right, thanks for watching.